Hello. Yesterday I found something. First thing I found in quite a while, because if you've watched these videos of the last few months, getting uh, less and less likely to find something in their secondhand shops when I'm going out now. But I found this yesterday when I was looking around. This is the debut album by Electronic, and this is $1, as you can see there. What's that? W38. Don't know what that means. This was found at a op shop, secondhand shop, charity shop. I think it was a hospice one from memory. Um, so Electronic, if you don't know, were a kind of well, it wasn't kind of, it was a collaboration between Bernard Sumner from New Order and Johnny Marr from the Smiths. So you kind of stop and you think of those two artists and their bands. Bernard Sumner, we think of Joy Division and New Order and the kind of sound, the sound that evolved over that period. And then same with Johnny Marr, we think about his band, we think about the Smiths, and his guitar work is very, very recognizable in the Smiths and some of the stuff he's done after that. Um, and you think about those two and then you listen to this. Well, I guess you imagine what you think it would sound like, a collaboration between these two, and then you listen to it, and it's maybe not necessarily what I had expected. However, this isn't my first time hearing listening to something by them, because I actually have another of their albums. I also got secondhand probably a couple of years ago. I got this one for 50 cents, Twisted Tenderness. So Electronic, which is self-titled, came out in '91, and Twisted Tenderness came out in '99. To me, on at least this first album, I should say, not so much Twisted Tenderness, but when I hear Electronic, I heard this album for the first time. I listened through to it last night, and I listened to it a little bit again this morning. It takes me a long time to kind of digest music, unless it's kind of the kind of music that is much more designed to be, instantaneous, or whatever you want to call it. Kind of, it hits you quickly, like certain kinds of pop music or even certain kinds of rock music. You can kind of get your feel for it really quickly. Most kinds of music, I'm not like that, and it takes me a really long while to come to a conclusion about what I think about something. So, like I said, there are some there where it can be quicker, and you can just instantly, this isn't my kind of thing, or this is really catchy, or this is cool, this isn't. But most things I hear, I need some time with it. I'd say particularly with, actually, just most kinds of music. Most kinds of music. On first impressions, to me, this just sounds like New Order with a bit of not even Marr-esque guitars, or whatever Marr-esque means. But I guess everything I think of Johnny Marr is largely colored by the Smiths, and I love his guitar work so much in the Smiths. I think, I don't know, it's like genius, his guitar work in the Smiths. It's so, I don't know how you put it, unique and creative and not like anything else. And I don't know, I could put out other superlatives on why I love it so much. But anyway, when you listen to this Electronic album, I'm not really hearing the guitar that I usually associate with Johnny Marr at all, the jangly type thing. Um, I'd say kind of guitar is kind of, is it almost fades into the background, because I guess anything you put Bernard Sumner's vocals on, it's always kind of gonna come off a bit New Orderish. But this music is, what would you call it? electronic. It's kind of synth pop based, I guess. And from what I read yesterday, when I was kind of like quickly deciding whether I was going to buy this or not, apparently he was frustrated that in New Order he couldn't use as much synth as he wanted, and so he decided he wanted to going to do his own solo project, and then he didn't like working by himself, so he got in worked together with Johnny Marr. I think he worked with him a bit before that, and then they also worked the guy from Pet Shop Boys. So you hear his voice come up again. I didn't actually know it at the time, but as I was listening to this last night, I was saying, "Oh, that sounds like what's his name? Neil." Oh, it says here actually. Where is it? Neil Tennant. That sounds like Neil Tennant, the guy from the Pet Shop Boys. And then as I was reading a bit later, I was like, "Oh, it is Neil Tennant from the Pet Shop Boys." So this is put out on Factory. Tony Wilson's label that put out a lot of that kind of 80s, late 70s, 80s British, I don't know, dance, mixed dance, rock, pop type stuff. So I think was Joy Division on Factory? I think it was. New Order, that's the one. Can't think of their name. Jesus. Shaun Ryder's band. Happy Mondays. Some other acts as well. If you've seen that movie 24 Hour Party People, which is about that label, and Tony Wilson and Steve Coogan, aka Alan Partridge, played him. It's funny when you see Steve Coogan in something, blank, it just seems like Alan Partridge playing the part. You know what I mean? Like I saw some clips on YouTube recently of they did a I don't know what you call it, biopic of Jimmy Savile, and Steve Coogan's playing Jimmy Savile, which I think he does a pretty good job, but it's hard to kind of just forget about Alan Partridge. It just very often you just come back to thinking it's Alan Partridge. The only thing that I think he was completely different is when he was in Curb Your Enthusiasm. He played Larry David's therapist, or one of his therapists, when he got separated from Cheryl, and he played that therapist who ended up getting arrested and put in jail because they had some harebrained scheme to try and, I can't remember exactly why, but the part he played in that, he kind of came off a bit differently than he usually does. It wasn't so much Alan Partridge. Anyway, kind of gone off topic here. So, produced by Bernard Sumner and Johnny Marr, engineered by Owen Morris. So Owen Morris was the producer of most of Oasis's albums, wasn't he? I think at least the big three. Let me check that. Yes. So it's funny how many producers start off as engineers, isn't it? A lot of them do start off just as studio engineers, and then they kind of move into producing. But yes, Owen Morris did definitely Maybe. What's the Story? Morning Glory, Be Here Now. Also worked with The Verve, Ash, the other bands, Kaiser Chiefs, Madness. Anyway, yeah, he did this. He engineered this. You know, it's often. I think I've talked about this before. You when you hear the term producer, you say, well, what does a producer really do? A lot of producers are more about the technical engineering side, whereas other producers like Rick Rubin doesn't. He literally just goes in and listens to the music and then gives feedback on what he thinks they should or shouldn't do, or how they can change something. Or he's not the kind of guy who sits at the board twiddling knobs and putting faders up and down, things like that. And maybe it's because he didn't have an engineering background, I don't think, Rick Rubin. Maybe he did, but I don't think he did. Whereas other producers are much more, on the technical side, like a Steve Albini, for example, or even a Bob Rock. From some of the documentary I've seen involving him, he does seem quite comfortable behind the board and twiddling and, the technical side of it, because I think he started off as an engineer. Anyway, recorded in Manchester. So we've got vocals, keyboards, programming by Bernard Sumner, guitars, keyboards, programming by Johnny Marr. So no vocals by Johnny Marr, but Johnny Marr has done vocals subsequently on other things, because I've a few years ago I liked one of his solo records. I think it was The Messenger. Was it? Or was the name of the song The Messenger? Whatever it was either a song or an album called The Messenger, and I listened to that quite a bit. And his vocal is not bad. It's actually got some kind of Bernard Sumner elements too. I guess they're both Manchester guys, similar accent. I'm not saying he sounds like Bernard Sumner exactly, but there's kind of similar range, maybe. I've also heard him do, when he does solo shows and does Smith's tunes, he'll sing Morrissey's vocals. Not in a Morrissey fashion at all, because that would be ridiculous. Someone trying to be Morrissey. There's only one Morrissey, and you would come unstuck pretty quickly if you tried to mimic that. But I think his vocals, it's like it's a very mid-range vocal that kind of fits easily with anything, I guess. Johnny Marr's. Not really important because he didn't sing on this, so I don't know what I'm talking about. So we've also got vocals on Patience of a Saint by Neil Tennant, keyboards on Patience of a Saint by Chris Lowe, drums, Donald Johnson, don't know him, David Palmer, Denise. I was just seeing if there's any other kind of names that I recognize. No. So Pet Shop Boys together with Marr and Marr and Sumner. So yeah, I've only listened through this once, and certainly not bad. I'm not saying it's bad at all, but I'd feel I'd need a couple more weeks at least to really get a good feel of it. It's got a very New Order feeling to it. With, like I said, apparently he wanted to use synths more. There's certainly a lot of synth in it. There's some guitar, but I'd say the guitar, nothing about the guitars really stood out to me. On the first track, Idiot Country? He has this kind of like, there's some wah guitar, like kind of guitar with a wah pedal on it, but it's kind of a bit deeper in the mix, and it's, again, not what I really usually associate with Johnny Marr. But anyway, very happy to pick this up for $1, because quite a rare thing to find around here, not a common thing to find. So yeah. This one, which like I said, got two years ago, this came a lot later. This was from 1999, so the sound had changed by then. It had more of a rock feel to it, at least the songs that I remember. I haven't listened to this a whole lot over the last 2 years. Got Rasputin on the cover there. Who else used another band that used Rasputin on the cover is Typo Negative on their last album. Was it Dead Again? Was it Dead Again? Yes, Dead Again, their last album they released a few years before Peter Steele died. They used Rasputin on the cover. It's a great album. Kind of underrated, that album, I feel. Dead Again. It's got September Sun. I love that song. So yeah, what I remember from listening to this off and on over the last couple of years, it's got more of a rock feel to it, more kind of prominent guitar work, but again, not your typical Johnny Marr guitar. So it's, and I can understand that. He doesn't want to just be kind of a one-trick Smith's guitar pony. Who was this done? Engineered by James Spencer. Let's see if there's any names. James Spencer, Jimmy Goodwin on the bass. Yeah, that's kind of like the other one I was talking about. It sounds a lot like New Order. It almost sounds like a Peter Hookless New Order. If you take away the Peter Hook's bass, which is such a huge part of the New Order sound, very recognizable bass sound, obviously, Peter Hook. You take that away, and you kind of take more late 80s, early 90s New Order. That's what electronic, that first album, sounded like to me. This has got kind of more, almost like alternative rock guitars on it, this album. But again, using the kind of I think there's a mixture of both, beats, sampled beats or beats, made beats, but also I think there's a live drummer as well. Just looking, yes, drums and percussion, Jed Lynch. So yeah, two albums by a band that I wouldn't say I really know much about or haven't listened to much at all, but you know, I'm sure over the years I will listen to this more. Kind of got to get into the mood for these kinds of things, don't you? Well, I feel I do. It's like I'll look through my shelves for something to play, when I'm home alone, and because it's hard to play music when your family's here because they don't want to hear loud music. Fair enough. And usually the house is small and people got to do things. Can't be blasting music when other people are here. So when I'm home alone, as I am right now, I'll usually look for a couple of CDs to play. So I'll look through, and certain things will stick out depending the mood you're in. So yesterday, for whatever reason, I was in a Tom Petty mood, and I listened to Tom Petty. But yeah, I was thinking about some of those music reviewers you see, like or whoever, any music reviewer, critic who gets a hold of a new album and has kind of like a few days or a week or maybe a week or two to kind of listen to the album and form a overarching opinion about the music. I would find that really, really hard to do because it just your feeling towards things can really change a lot over time. And certain music is like designed, or not even designed, just by its nature, it is slow burning. As an example, I remember I listened to a lot of Devin Townsend, and when he came out with the Devin Townsend Project, he released 4 albums in relatively quick succession: Key, Addicted, Ghost, and Destruction. I think the first one he released was Key, and the second one was Addicted. And the first one I listened to was Addicted, and I actually heard most of Addicted stuff when I saw him live. He came and played a concert, and it was kind of the first time I'd heard that material, and it's instantaneous music. It's the kind of music the first time you listen to it, you're like, whoa, that's like the guitar, the riffs and everything is so catchy and memorable. It's like kind of like candy almost, that oral candy, that music. But then Key, which was the album he released before that, I went back and bought that because I liked Addicted so much that I thought, from the same time this project was kind of put together, it must be a similar kind of thing. But it was completely different. And it took me really a year to fully comprehend and appreciate that album. The first time I heard it, I was like, some of the songs were okay, but a lot of it was just like overly long and just meandering, I felt. But then having time to sit with it and digest it, I came to appreciate it and like it as much as Addicted, but in a very different way. Or his first album, before the project, his first solo album, Ocean Machine. For so long, there were songs on that album that I would skip. But then I first bought that album in like 2003. So like 20 years ago. And there are still now 20 years later, there'll be songs on it now that I love that for the first 10 years I would skip and wouldn't even listen to because I don't like that song. But something just suddenly like clicks with you and you think, holy shit, this is genius. Like the song Funeral. Or what's the other one? Voices in the Fan. Those 2 songs, Anyway, I'm running out of time here. Okay, thank you for watching and listening to my rambling.